Hello there, one and all, and a very warm welcome to my first live stream, my first thing that I've done like this in a very, very long time. You will forgive a man, by the way, for representing on Scotland's first foray into an international tournament since, well, do you know what? We were at Euro 2020, but it wasn't really like a real Euros. So France 98. So hence that in the background. The podcast sign, I never know which way to point when I'm on one of these things. That's the Bouncy Orange Ball podcast. I've had two kind of like false starts at that. But maybe given the gravity of the situation in British basketball right now, I should be doing a bit more of that kind of thing rather than just tweeting out stuff. I don't know. But the main reason that I got people to come on a stream like this today was to feed back thoughts and ask questions and to just basically give people a space to vent, because it's pretty ridiculous. I should say as well, I'm using loads of new equipment, so it gave me a good chance to try that out, but also it means that I don't really know how a lot of it works. So if anyone does, like, if there's anything that sounds annoying or looks annoying other than actually me, then that would be good. I look weird with my specs on. I'm going to take my specs off. There we go. See the bags under my eyes. Obviously not sleeping, such is my worry about British basketball. But this is going out live on Twitter, where most people are watching, and also live on my Hodgeythehack Facebook channel. Howdy there, BKBD. Nice to see you. So you can see, I can show comments and stuff. So if you want to get questions in or have any discussion points, then we can do that. And also, if anybody is actually feeling brave enough to want to come on the stream, then that is something else that we can organise. So what I would say in that instance is send me a private message on Twitter, and then I can send you a link to come and join us here on the stream if that's something that you want to do. Thank you, Catherine, my fiance there, just giving us a wee bit of encouragement, which is very nice. Yeah, do you know what? This is actually my office, BKBD. This is where I am. I've coloured it in for today's momentous occasion. Around me, I've got just so many boxes of electronic stuff that I've not actually fully unpacked yet. But basically, this is a public service announcement brought to you by Hodgeythehack, where I think it's important that I just feel that because the league itself, all of the big protagonists within the British basketball space have just been, I used the phrase burying heads in the sand, and I don't know if it was because I used it or because other people used it. That seems to be the phrase that has been used by most people now to say what has happened here. I think anyone who looked beyond the kind of glossy sort of sales pitch type thing would have seen that what happened with 777, and shout out just early on to the groundbreaking journalism work by Paul Brown and Philippe Auclair, who have been doing work for Josimar. They properly have gone to town. They that is what they do as their job. So they go and they are investigative journalists doing that type of thing. I was someone that got involved in the British basketball space, and I worked for Sky before that, covering the NBA, but being able to actually, so I was also a football commentator. So I then combined those two skills and commentated a bit for the BBL and the Caledonia Gladiators and stuff up here. Did that for one season. Loved the community that there is in British basketball. Loved the kind of people that there are that are involved in basketball in this country. Loads of people joining this, by the way. Just so you know, if you want to comment or get some questions in, then you can get them in through commenting on the stream on Twitter, now called X, but let's call it what it really is, Twitter, and on YouTube if you're watching on there. That is the best way to get questions in, and I'll definitely try and address some of those. But I became very passionate about the British basketball space as soon as becoming involved in it. I saw the amount of people that I wouldn't say quite dedicate their lives, but dedicate a large portion of their lives to making sure that clubs run well, to making sure that just whatever their wee part of the operation runs well, so that the bigger. Thanks for the comment on the haircut, Barney. It was well overdue, mate. There's loads of people that just do their wee bit, their little bit, which helps the whole ecosystem of British basketball function. And we know that because of the disparity in funding compared to other sports, that different demographics of people tend to compete in, the funding is very, very disproportionate. So basketball has to work a lot harder for the money to keep itself as a self-sustaining thing, self-generating thing. So therefore, it's very, very reliant on volunteers. And I think that's one of the problems, is that there isn't necessarily the amount of private money in the sport that can sustain it. And there's not enough public money in the sport to sustain it properly. So that combination of factors leads to situations like the one which has presented, which is where alleged money which has not necessarily been kind of counted or accounted for, definitely not the entire delivery of the £7 million up front. I can't really off the top of my head. Now, I should qualify here. One of the things that I've done after kind of diving into this is I've learned a lot more about financial jargon. I don't really know a lot of financial jargon. I am not an expert on finances, on any of that kind of stuff. I'm also not someone that's going to tell you that I know some if I don't. Like, I feel I have to say that. So the kind of business terminology and all of that stuff, I have to look quite carefully into some of these terms to know what they mean, right? And even then, I might get it wrong. I go to people that know more than me. But I do understand that there is not enough money in the game right now, and therefore it is reliant on volunteers. And it's these volunteers that are getting cheated by things like what has happened and what has transpired with 777. So with 777, I don't know any other thing or any other situation such as that in any other sport or even walk of life, right? I'm sure there are instances, but where money is pledged but not given up front or not given within a set time period. It was more like, when can I find the change in my pocket? That was basically the way that the sport has been financed ever since that takeover. I was going to say came to fruition, but fruit's a good thing. So came to pass. There's probably a more appropriate phrasing. So when that happened, I think a lot of people bought into the vision and what it was about, on the surface level, which is like, yeah, let's get money in the game and let's grow this sport. And I think anyone that's involved in basketball and passionate about it knows that this sport is primed to explode. Explode in a sense, it's primed to grow, right? The sport is growing in terms of the numbers of people participating in it, in terms of the numbers of people that are playing it. Then it is absolutely growing and is only going to continue to do that. What is happening though is that with that investment, that is, and obviously all of the ramifications that we're going to see now, is going to pull that kind of shooting movement forward. That idea that this sport is growing and growing in a holistic and good way, that's going to be affected by the negative fallout that is going to happen here. And this has got to be something, right? Something I'm really passionate about. As there's a lot of people have done amazing work in the British basketball community a lot longer than I have, and hats off to every single man, woman, boy and girl that is true of. However, I think that it's time for this sport to appreciate where it really is. And where it really is we're at the stage now where it has visibility, at least. People want to play it. People want to engage with it. People want to watch it. Right now, regardless of what you think of the changes to the BBL TV production, which everyone has their opinion on, they've tried something, and it seems that some people have liked it. That there's also been a lot of negative feedback, but I think what the methodology behind all of that was all about airbrushing the top level of the sport. It's like, let's make it look like the NBA. It's not the NBA. What British basketball is all about is it's about community. It's about people. And it's about, yeah, it's not going to be the biggest fan base in the world necessarily compared to other sports, right? But if you go and watch Man United or Man City or whatever, I think you'll talk to a lot of seasoned fans of those clubs, and they'll say, like, the atmosphere in the stadium is not the same because the match day experience has changed, blah, blah, blah. I think with British basketball, that's absolutely the opposite. And almost you should be leaning into the USP. I can remember when I was watching the Gladiators win that BBL trophy final, I was behind the basket as it went in. And then, obviously, with it being in Glasgow at the Emirates Arena, the Cheshire Phoenix fans were thoroughly outnumbered, but they were all colour coordinated and they made sustained noise for the entire game. And I remember being blown away thinking, wow, what a fan base. Not massive, but oh my goodness, passionate people who deserve better, and passionate people who deserve accountability, right, from the people that are in charge of this sport. Now, I have done a couple of, actually, I've been tweeting rather prolifically and more than my usual nonsense, other than the wee bits of kind of Scotland daftness. I'm quite excited about the game tonight. Give that about 10, how long? We're at 2:30, kick-off's at 8. So I've got about another 6 hours, 8 at a push before I feel thorough dejection. So please allow me that. But I think a couple of the main things that I've tweeted recently are about, firstly, the fact that the 7-7 thing was predicated on a lie. It was predicated on a lie. It was all these things about growing the sport and all of that sort of stuff. It wasn't about that at all. It was a vehicle for the investment group to be able to fraternize with people that would allow them to fulfill their dream of buying a Premier League club. And they came way, way too close to doing that. When you consider all of the stuff that you could potentially, or alleged stuff that you could potentially read in Josimar, it's pretty frightening, really, and it's also quite eye-opening as to just how easy, well, maybe not easy, but how something like that can continue to just wheel and wheel and wheel and wheel without actually stopping. So I think, despite all of the suggestions that was about, the 777 investment was about basketball as a whole in the country, it wasn't about that. It was a vanity vehicle of sorts for the investment group to get in rooms to talk with these people, and it was also about the London Lions. Because a key part is that they were given exclusivity over the city. Now, my belief is that London is the real hotbed of basketball. Now, there are, across the country, there is a sort of semi-interconnected kind of network of places that are passionate about it, and there are in different areas like hubs. But London is a centralized entity, is a place that you could absolutely, if you get two rival clubs, you could grow a rivalry. And it's rivalries that power sports. And you could actually have a conduit where young people were going from watching to playing, like for youth teams and as a hobby, to actually being part of the first team. But unfortunately, when it comes to private investors and that sort of thing, that's not how the world works. They put their money in and they want their money back quite quickly. So I think that we have to have a recalibration of where basketball is actually at in the growth cycle. We're earlier on than people want to admit or want to think. We need to realize that we're at the point where we should be focused on community. We should be focused on community, and the second half of that word, I promise I didn't line this up because it sounds like one of the election bollocks things, but part of the word community is unity. And I think it's really, really good that the BBL clubs have all come out, and it must have been a coordinated fashion. And not all of them. I've not counted other clubs, but I do know Sharks, Riders, etc. have done it, where they've come out with statements saying, right, do you know what? Yes, quite right to take the action against the operating body of the league, which is Basketball League Limited, which is the company that is co-owned by 777. So it's the operators of the league rather than the league itself that is I mean, the league itself will be impacted by this, but it's the operators of the league that are the ones that are under scrutiny here. And by the clubs aligning to say, look, we want to have a British basketball league, we like some of the stuff we were doing, we want to work together with them, then that means that it's not necessarily like a doomsday apocalypse scenario, but it is very, very, very bleak. And it is a very worrying time as a British basketball fan and as someone who's tried to say, look, let's take our heads out the sand here. This is bad. And I think the other thing that really angers me before I come on to any of the kind of questions, again, just a wee reminder, because the numbers on this stream are growing. And thank you to everyone who's tuning in to watch. I hope listening to me is at least somewhat worthwhile in your day. If you want to respond, most of the people watching, in fact, almost all of them are on Twitter. So if you get some comments in on there, then I should be able to answer them. I'll also check my phone for direct messages. And then if anyone actually wants to come on the stream and have a chat, then you can also send me a wee direct message as well. And I should be able to send a link out so that people can do that. Just try and make sure I send the right things to the right people. So nothing in my direct messages so far. But if anyone wants to get them in there, send me a wee message actually and a comment to remind me to look so that I don't forget to look again. So the second thing that I am really passionate about is the fact that at no point in this process have we seen any form of leadership or accountability or any of the things you would expect from a body. Now, it's really interesting because the clubs are uniting behind the British Basketball League, who maybe have done well by the clubs, but in terms of the fans, every single British basketball fan has been absolutely cheated by the league just totally ignoring. It's like a herd of elephants in the room. It's not an elephant in the room. With this 777 stuff that's been bubbling away for a long time. And the fact that there has been no attempt to try and engage with that is pretty damning, really, I think. And I also think it's extremely disrespectful to the one fundament that the league has got, that regardless of whether it's a Phoenix operation and whether it's liquidated or administrated or goes bust and is reborn, whatever it is, right? Whatever regeneration like Doctor Who, that's a good time to get a wee look at this. Doodle-doo-doon, doodle-doo-doon. Whatever regeneration the league goes through after this, yes, I am a geek. For anyone that's it's not been as good in recent years, but David Tennant, absolutely outstanding Doctor Who. Won't hear a word from anyone that says anyone's better than him. I think it's shocking that the league have not come out. I think every fan deserved better. And I think that one of the things that I think should be getting pushed for, I'm not necessarily the right person to do it, but people who are on the ground and involved in clubs and volunteers and people that are actually making this sport happen in this country, I think that those people should be banding together and saying, right, what are you doing for the fans? What are you actually doing for the fans? And how are you being accountable to those fans? Those fans that you're asking to pay money to come and see your product, right? Because that's what it is, right? To the money people, it's a product. Basketball is a product that they are trying to sell and trying to grow into a more valuable product. That is capitalism, right? So if you're going to do that, then what you have to do is you have to look at your most important stakeholder. And rather than looking at 777 and the allegedly spurious money that they had or didn't have, rather than looking at that as your key stakeholder and doing everything to appease them, which is say nothing, do nothing, come out and actually engage with the stakeholders that truly matter, the fans, because it's the fans that are the lifeblood of this game. And the fans are going to be the ones that will stick by it regardless of what happens, right? I mean, some people might be turned off and turned away and somewhat soured by the experience, and I totally get that. From my point of sort of dipping my toe into doing a bit of the broadcast work, and then obviously, like when I started kind of trying to sort of say some things about this, there was a few trolls and a lot of kind of negative stuff. That actually forced me to just kind of step back for it for a while, because I thought, oh, I don't need this. But then, obviously, as people have started to wake up, then there's loads and loads. Like, honestly, like, we've no even touched, you know, that meme or picture of the iceberg. We've no even touched that yet in terms of how much you could go into here as to how complicit the league has been, how complicit 7-7 has been, how complicit even things about the working culture within the Lions and other organisations that have been connected with 7-7. There's so many things that you could actually go into that you could, well, I could be here all day, and I probably have spoken for too long without engaging with any questions yet. But for me, there's the key fundamentals here are that I don't think this is I don't think it's definitely not the end of basketball in this country, but we need to be realistic about where we're at. And we need to be realistic about what that is going to mean for the growth cycle of the sport and how long it goes and how long it's going to take to grow to that point. And stick with it, keep the faith, and try and grow it organically rather than trying to turbocharge it into some glossy thing that it really isn't. It really is not that. It's about what British basketball is. And rather than shying away from that, lean into that and say, I'm proud of this. I want to sell this. So that's point number one. Point number two is the league needs to respect its fans and do more. It needs to do more to show that it respects its fans and give them something, please, given all that's happened up to this point and then today. Please do come out and then actually engage with your fans. Now, I'm going to get to the comments in just a wee second. I'm just going to quickly check. Nobody's in on the phone wanting to jump on the stream. And I'm not going to keep it going too long because, although I can talk for Scotland, I don't have any English relatives if you did want to recruit me as like an expatriate talker for your international talking team. Right, sorry. So I'm just going to dive into some of the comments. The blah blah LOL, fantastic name, and really enjoyed the House of Pain reference on Twitter the other day, and was actually quite happy with my reply. How much of today's been orchestrated by the clubs as it was the only out? I don't really have an answer to that. I think one part that was orchestrated definitely. Well, I say definitely. I'm not reporting this as fact. This is my analysis, but it seems like it'd be a bit random for all of the clubs to come out with statements around the 1 o'clock mark, or however many have, just saying that, yes, we back the British Basketball Federation's decision to suspend the licence, but we still want the league to be a thing. The idea of that happening organically and the text being pretty much identical, if not definitely identical on at least two of them that I saw, then yeah, I would say that would be something that would have been an orchestrated thing. Ethan's asking, why do you think the BBL did not force 7-7 to give the pledged money up front? Do you have any insight on why that happened? Yes, I do, but I'm not ready to tell you yet. Sorry to do that. I'm working on something that should hopefully shed some light on that, but watch this space with that one. PW with a wonderful 4-leaf clover. Phil Wright, absolute legend, says, as a fan of the game in British basketball, do you know the position for clubs like the Patriots and the Giants? As I believe they were being operated by BBL funding and by extension 777. Now, that is an interesting one because it will depend on the way that this all shakes out. Obviously, if the league itself folds, then the impact for those clubs is fairly obvious. But if there is some sort of transition kind of thing, and again, this is where my limitations on the financial knowledge do come in. I will assert that, because there's no point in trying to pretend I know when I don't. That's an alarm there. I've got a meeting at 3, so this will be ending quite soon. Sorry, I'm just trying to remember my thread of thought there. Yes, I think the position for clubs like that will be determined by the way that this all shakes out. It's going to be whatever iteration that this takes, and things will move slow in the courts with regards to what we find out about 777 and all the kind of shaking out there. But I think things are going to have to move fairly fast in terms of what the league's going to look like and what the structure of the league is going to look like in time. So I think this is going to be a bit of a sort of edge of the seat, bite your fingernails type ride for the next few months. And I think that's it's going to be difficult, but it's certainly going to be interesting. And the one thing I would say is it is better that 777 are not part of British basketball. I have believed that for a long time. It's why I did the reporting. And yeah, I will keep trying to do things. Now, I have been stung in the past. Thank you for all the positive comments. That's another thing. The amount of people that have come to me in recent days and said, just like, well done, thank you, blah, blah, blah. It's really, really heartening, because it was the opposite like a number of months ago, with people just trying to kind of denounce things and stuff. And with things like this, it's so I obviously work in the media, and a lot of, like, in various capacities. Currently, primarily running a Formula One website. I've not been directly involved in British basketball, but I have been following this story and all the things to do with it. This is not something I do other than for the passion of trying to do something decent. And I think, like, the cause of exposing what is happening here, it was a worthwhile one to pour some time into. And now that we're at the point where things are beginning to happen, then I will continue to keep an eye on it. And obviously, any journalist is only as good as the sources of information that they receive, and the information that they get, and weighing it up the right way. I'll always try to do my best. If I ever get anything wrong, I will hold my hands up to it. Very famously, I was reporting on Celtic's manager chase of Eddie Howe a few years ago, and was ahead of the story and ahead of all of the media by quite a bit for most of it, and then famously announced that he was the Celtic manager. Yes, that never happened. That was not the done deal I said it was. So not everything can always be right. So far, I stand by everything that I have published and said about this, whether that's analytical or from a news perspective. And I will continue to try and tell some stories that other people have been too scared to do, because I think a lot of people involved in the British basketball community have been a little afraid of what it might do in terms of compromising their own situation if they come out and do stuff. And I completely understand that. If you work for, I don't know, a club or a body, or with the clubs and bodies, then you have to be very, very, very careful about how you do stuff and how you engage with stuff. For me, I felt that this matter was more important than any bits of basketball work I would get, which is why I've had the freedom to do that, and the freedom to maybe do it where other people have not. And hopefully I've done something that people have been glad of, and I will continue to try and do that. And thank you to the over 500 people that have watched this stream. If you think it's been worthwhile, then I would really, really... And if there's any last minute questions that you want to get in, then I would be interested to address them. Ethan says he looks forward to reading that piece that I'm talking about. Yep, hopefully it gets to the point that I can publish it. Obviously, I do all my publishing on Twitter, because unless it's football related, usually newspapers and other organisations are not into it. And like, I'm not going to give them material that I source if I'm not getting paid for it. Whereas you guys, if you keep tuning into streams and sharing stuff, then absolutely I'll be happy to do that. So yes, please do make sure and share the stream if you have enjoyed it. Share any of the tweets if you think there's a reason to do so. And thank you so much to everyone who has. We've just hit 600 there as I'm going to wrap up. Really, really grateful to you all for being part of this stream. If I think there's another reason to do a stream at some point, then I will do. The other thing I would say is, if you are someone that is involved in the British basketball community who has, this sounds like one of these things after like a drama on the telly, who has been affected by this story. No, but genuinely, if you have been directly involved in this, I will never, ever, ever compromise a confidence. That's one thing that I do. I always protect the people that speak to me. So if you do want to speak to me and you want to do so in confidence, then please, please do. Because the more of these stories I hear, the more passionate it makes me to try and get to the bottom of this and make sure that the people that need to be held accountable are held accountable. Thank you very much, everyone. Have a very pleasant day. And moan the bonny Scotland tonight. I can boogie.